Uh, Good evening, Dr. Rotman. I hope this video finds you well. Uh, for my digital story, I'm going to reflect on my previous year teaching, inform you a little bit more about myself and what my classroom will look like going forward. So, just to get started, uh, I'm Dylan Hamill. I have the privilege to be married to my wonderful wife, who is a social worker, family therapist, and to be the father of the beautiful and spunky Eleanor Jane. This her in between us, and then her on her rocking horse. She loves her rocking horse so much. That smile is just pure delight, pure infectious. Now, for the last year, I'm going into my third year teaching. My first year was at North Lenore High School, but this past year, my second year was at Southwest Edgecombe High School located in Pine Tops, North Carolina. We are east of the Tar River, and we are a school of delightful faculty, sweet students, but we have problems. We have problems of poverty, problems of low performance. Really, it's a culture and community that is not used to educational success, is not supportive of educational success. And even though we do the best we can, the blue and white of the Southwest Edgecombe Cougars, uh, we try to do better. We try to pursue the best outcomes of our students. Each and every one of us as teachers, we try and try and try. And already, even this brief summer session, I've already gleaned things from this MAT program that will help me in the coming year. From my second year teaching, I would look back and reflect on it as being a good year, but so a few key takeaways, and I'll try to be brief. First year teaching is definitely just it's called teaching, but really it's just survival. It's just can you show up each day? Can you stay in the room with the kids? Can you finish what you start? Second year teaching, it really felt like I got sort of my legs underneath me, familiar with the curriculum, trying to branch out, saw what worked the first time, what didn't work, and switch things around. And I discovered that I am a nerd. I love social studies resources. I love finding resources, creating resources, curating resources, sort of fitting them to my classroom. It's actually, I wouldn't characterize myself as a creative person, but it really does stoke the creative side of my brain. And in social studies, we have the, what I would argue, maybe second only to literature. We have the best resources because we have primary sources. We look back into the past, see the lives and lived experiences of those before us, and to a student who is interested, it's really just a mind altering experience without the uh, prescription or the cult. Now, this past year, I've experimented a lot with graphic organizers and different sort of uh, methodologies to increase literacy. Really, throughout my entire class and curriculum, I've tried to do things with vocabulary, sort of an adapted Freyer, Marzano thing with anticipation and prior knowledge. Again, a neat, clean vocabulary organizer. I mean, starting out, it's just looking up terms in a book. It's just sort of it's not a very elegant way of imparting vocabulary knowledge. So we do this, and then we do a vocabulary word wheel. Sort of gleaned that from one of my English colleagues. Again, it's trying to build as many associations between the vocabulary words and prior knowledge and content knowledge as possible, while also sort of doing a little bit of lifting for the English curriculum. I mean, social studies, we do not have an EOC. We are a core class, but do not have that big stick looming over us. So whatever we can do to help our colleagues who are beneath the EOC grindstone, uh, we do what we can. Now, with primary sources, when it comes to curating and adapting resources for my own class, this sort of sequence of source, summary, critical thinking, and vocabulary portion, actually sort of gleaned this from the Gilder Lehrman folks in the Ivy League. Again, it keeps things brief. And this is one of my favorite primary sources, Ivan the Terrible. I did a lot of work as an undergraduate student in college on Russia, so again, this is letting my nerd flag fly. But as a social studies teacher, trying to not just cover um, just the literacy of understanding primary sources. We also do things with charts, trying to get students to think historically, think critically, use evidence, create evidentiary thinking, and we do this briefly with Justinian's Code, a primary source. Pretty neat. A big takeaway from my second year teaching is classroom management. All right, when I as a lateral entry teacher, when I first started teaching, I remember a week before I started, I thought about what my classroom would look like, and this picture came to mind. Raphael's school at Athens. This place of learning, discussion, interest, where ideas are digested. Just this real incredible space. However, after the first few days or so, my classroom was more like this cartoon. Students are students. They are young. They have interests, shockingly, that run contrary to school. So managing their personalities, managing their energy, it's a daily challenge. I mean, I have had successes with classroom management, and I have had days where you just, um, what is it? How does the um, phrase go? Some days you invent the wheel, some days you get run over. Again, classroom management, a constant uh, hurdle for a new teacher. Um, but reflecting on the previous year, excuse me, of classroom management, and we've actually briefly discussed this ourselves. Um, as a new teacher, well, really as just as a teacher, my classroom is my arena. It is my space. However, I am really only as strong as the people around me. If I have a county office or administrators that do not care about discipline, then uh, then I have to do the lifting myself. But all those things are factors outside of my control. So instead, and I sort of whipped up this chart in Google. Uh, the classroom management strategies that I have found empirically that do work is centered around relationship building. I mean, I have had students that cannot stand me, and you're going to have those from time to time. But I have had students who, when I'm hanging around the teacher's lounge or on duty or something, and teachers talk shop, and you compare rosters, and I've had teachers complain about some people on my roster, and I've had the privilege to look back at them and say, "Oh, well, they're wonderful for me. They like X or they do Y. By building relationships, you learn about the students' lives and you build trust. And it is very, very difficult to act like a jerk uh, to someone whom you trust and respect. Uh, so that is how I am going forward. Now, even though classroom management has been sort of, a daily grind, what has been the most discouraging in my first 2 years of teaching has been, sadly, administration. I mean, they're people too. They have their own obligations, their own